Hi.
Hi. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so great for you to be here. Kris McLaughlin, everybody, a beautiful soul, amazing realtor, does some really cool stuff with moon magic energy and astrology. And so today we're here, and my name's Fuentes, and we're just going to have a conversation. I'd love to start really kind of just with you and either side of it. You're a very successful realtor doing really cool things. But what's really fun about what you do is how you incorporate mindfulness in business and in real estate specifically. In fact, you're dubbed the mindful agent,
Yes.
which is pretty cool. And for a lot of people who are trying to figure out their journeys, their paths, life's purpose, things like that, what's really interesting about this experience for all of us is that it's not meant to be one major mission. It's not meant to be this big, if I do this, dig wells or help the homeless, or if I start a charity, or if I do this really cool thing that inspires me in this way. It was never meant to be that for us. It was really meant to be what flows with you as far as business, what flows with you as far as personal. Find your deeper connection through everyday life. And you've definitely found that through real estate.
Yes.
How are you feeling about the energy out there as far as real estate, the market, kind of what's going on out there? What are you seeing in your space?
It's a great question. Currently, there's a lot of factors out in the world that are impacting real estate because it's tied to, larger global movements of finances and inventory numbers and interest rates, and those are tied to larger things beyond anyone's control. And so this is a time where I think people are kind of not sure. There's always that I'm sure I'm going to move or I'm going to sell or buy because of expansion for space or downsizing. So like the amount of space you need, literally moving locations, and you need somewhere to live, But the piece of the market, I think the larger piece of any real estate market is the wanting to, the uncovering the desire for fill in the blank. But there isn't really a deadline or an external force that's pushing it forward. And that part of the market feels, not totally directed yet. A little less active because of all the factors. And that's okay. I mean, it's a market. It's a cycle. It's always moving. It's not the same, literally, even day to day, if you're tracking the numbers. And we talked about long ago, I was really attached to what the market was doing as an indicator of how I was going to be doing as a realtor and how my clients were going to be doing and how the sales were going to go. And a while ago, over a decade ago, I dare say, I got off that roller coaster and started to lead my clients and my business in a way that had to do with what the goals were, what the factors were, and then bringing the magic and the mindfulness to make them happen.
Yeah.
So I do think that's what sets me apart in markets like this, and people can feel inspired. And the way I work with people in a time when maybe direction is lighter, like I was saying before, given all the factors, can help them find that lane for themselves.
Yeah. Just to clarify or to break it down a little bit more in that way, there's really two types of buyers, sellers. The people who feel like they have to, for whatever reason, whether it's relocation of a job, moving because of some other circumstances, divorce, you literally can't fit any other people in your house and you got to expand. And then there's the want to people. In the have to people, that's going to happen regardless of what the market looks like. It's the want to people, which is the bigger group of people. When it comes to my work and even your work, the biggest difference there for people is when we're not being forced, what I see is, do you have the trust, the faith, the belief in yourself, your path, your journey to really go for something, versus what we do as humans. Typically, we don't make moves until we're forced to. We don't end that friendship until something happens that forces it. We don't leave that job until the circumstances get so bad that we feel like we're forced to. Versus choosing to leave whatever it is, or choosing to do whatever you're doing because of a deep down trust, knowingness, and even honoring yourself. And that's no different in the housing market.
Absolutely. That's so well said.
Yeah, and that's what you really do when you work with people in the want to space. So talk a little bit more about that, like working with the want to clients, and because it can be scary, the market, there's so many uncertainties, rates, which actually aren't bad, but just the perception is that they're bad and everyone's waiting for them to come down to some magical number. That won't happen for a long, long time. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, that space you were talking about, the want to space, when you aren't forced by something usually bad, sometimes good, but something specific that's forcing the move, it allows you to practice your faith. It also asks you, what do you really want? And I think that's a question that we as humans don't ask ourselves, real estate or otherwise, very often. And when we do, I don't know that we take the time, I'm speaking from my own experience, to really, I can't answer that. Then I come up with some more like superficial answer, but that's not really the real answer. And so going deeper on that question, what do I really want, is a lot of what I help people uncover as it relates to real estate. Same through astrology. I mean, when you're looking at, the energies that you're working with as a human, your makeup, they're going to affect you no matter what you're doing. And the question is, how do you honor yourself? How well do you know yourself? Right? Where is your faith? Where is your doubt? Where are your fears? All that comes up when you're wanting to expand or change your house. Houses are places that hold energy. We live in them. We have memories in them. We have experiences in them. And, for most people who are living in their house and it's not an investment situation, they underestimate the energetic experience of deciding to buy or sell, move, leave, buy something new. And they end up going through something maybe they weren't prepared for on that level. And that's that same level of like, what do you want? Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And really the want to, what you do, again, just to summarize, you take the people that are the want to people, and not only do you really sit with them and dig deep, but that digging deep is taking people who are the want to people and making choices that honor them, versus just keeping up with the Joneses choices, versus thinking they need this or they want this, but it's really ego in some way. Talk about want to and really digging deep to get to the honoring place.
Yeah, I mean, we all have preconceived notions of what we want when we go into any specific venture. And it's a learning experience of understanding more of who you are. And real estate's a big one because this is a big decision and it's a lot of money. And there's a lot of work that it takes to do it. And so you're constantly faced with some of those questions. And what I try to help do is mirror. I can sense people's comfortableness level in a space, their vibrational match to a floor plan, a neighborhood. I had a client recently who had, we couldn't really find what they were looking for in the neighborhood they thought, and we expanded the search and we went to another neighborhood. And we did that, and then, I don't know, a few weeks later, we were back in the original neighborhood. And I just said to them, I just want to check in. I really get the sense that, like, this neighborhood is your fit. Like, we went to that other neighborhood, but do you want to keep exploring that? Because I can dig deeper in that secondary market. Or are we going to honor ourselves, basically, is what I was saying, honor yourself in this process and claim that this is the neighborhood and we're going to be patient and we're going to do the work to find something in the neighborhood that is a vibrational match for me. Those aren't the words I used, but for our conversation, that's what I was saying. It was much shorter. I was like, hey, do you guys want to stick to this zip code, or do you want to like keep exploring that other zip code?
But on a deeper level, you knew what you were asking.
Well, which they sense, feel, but I'm not saying in actual words. And the relief that I felt come off their shoulders, the resonance that I felt with like, oh, she gets me, the truth of that being true for them, that edified and solidified what they wanted, truly, what worked for them was validated. And they said, absolutely, we want to stay. We just had that. We were just talking about that the other day.
But you don't know what you don't know. And if you're open to exploring, then you can feel either a confirmation like, yeah, we were right to stay in this zip code, or, hey, maybe we were a little narrow scope. This feels equally as good.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But that mirroring is kind of something I bring and offer in a very gentle way for people, to help people find that deeper sense of faith, knowing, and honoring of themselves.
Yeah, it's really huge. And to do this, to be this mirror, to hold this very powerful space, which I know you do, talk about the work it takes personally to do that.
All of it. So I can only provide what I am. And I have found a lot of personal growth, personal peace, personal knowing of what I want, edified faith, honoring myself through living in a more mindful way in my day-to-day. So the mindfulness piece started with me as a way to operate in the world that I struggled, honestly, to be a match for, from a nervous system standpoint, from a logical standpoint a lot of times. And so I started using mindfulness practices, which is breath, meditation. For me, journaling, writing is so powerful for me. I know not everyone, but it could be hiking in nature or mindful movement. Writing for me is really an unlock. And that space allows me to go deeper and be true to myself. And then I, Kris, have to go out in the world and stand up for myself, honestly, in a way that feels good to others. Right. And good with the environment I'm interacting with. And that's just from a personal day-to-day.
Yeah. But that foundation also then bleeds into simple everyday choices, right? What you drink or don't drink, what you eat or don't eat. Yes. Talk about, and even some of your other physical practices.
Yeah, I was so clouded before the mindfulness piece came in. And then the more I started to uncover, the more I realized I was foggy or like couldn't see. I already ate pretty, quote unquote, healthy, but it wasn't mindful because it was coming from more of a place of like body image or size. And it wasn't really coming from nourishing my cells, nourishing my vibration, what feels good in my body, how can I be nourished and supported. So nourished and supported is like a baseline, not just for food, but water. Where's your water coming from?
And that's the thing, right? Changing the sources. Part of the mindfulness for you was also changing the sources of everything from your meat to water and all the details, right?
Absolutely. And then changing my relationship with exercise is like more of a celebration of movement than a punitive kind of exercise mentality that I'd lived through. And so that was really powerful. And all of these things add up because we're a walking collection of cells. And so...
And a walking collection of choices.
And a walking collection of choices. And all of our choices affect those cells. And like my cells, I can feel their smiling faces right now because they're so happy. And it was not the case before I started making different choices and before I started creating the curiosity and courage and space to look at that. Because it does require, it's a heavy lift when you're making any kind of change in your life. Even though it sounds small, changing where you get your meat, getting a different water source. It's sort of like, I can get lost in research. There's so much information available. You can kind of get overwhelmed with choices that seem simple, they're not necessarily easy. And it took time. It was one at a time, and it was over the course of a few years.
Yeah, when I coach my clients, it's a trickle. Like you trickle in a little bit at a time, because if they thought about all the things that would really benefit them in a choice standpoint, it really is overwhelming.
Yeah, then you just make more bad choices because you're like, I can't even. And you helped me so much. I mean, we were working together through that process, and it's sort of like every time I made a new decision that I kind of found my way on, it opened a new window or a new door for another decision. And a trickle is a good word.
Yeah. It's really fun to watch as people do it, and as they do start to integrate these subtle things. And they're subtle and small, but have huge positive outcomes in just even, do you know how many people are dehydrated every single day, especially in Arizona, but obviously all around, like people just aren't getting enough water.
Right, because it's not just water. It's water and other elements.
Yeah, so it's not enough water, but then the other things that are going against the water, and then it's the quality of water, and then if they don't think about how water is such a conduit for electrical firing of the brain, it's healthy cell development, it's everything. And it's just something we're beautiful humans doing the best we can, but it's a really big challenge for people to just look at that, to make a conscious effort to track how much water you're having in your body, and to think of it every single day.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that was so helpful, and I wanted to ask you about this. So when we still work together, but at that time when we were working together, then you would do at the end of our session a visualization that's like, whatever, 5 to 12 minutes, just depending on probably your clients, how long it is and what information's coming through. But I would listen to those every day. I mean, as much as I could every day, maybe not every single day, in between the times we met, which was about a month. And some of it was a little, I would call in hindsight, effortless, because I'm assuming or asking the way the brain was working with that meditative state of hearing the message of whatever we were working with that month around choices or honoring the self, or what I was sensing and feeling, or what obstacles I was facing and working through them. Just the words in a meditative state that get into the back of the brain. You did a post on this recently and how it affects the front of the brain. So can you talk about like how listening to something as short as, say, 5 minutes, let's call it 4 days a week, just to be conservative, in a 30-day period that was specific to where I was and what I was working on, created kind of an effortlessness to, or an ease, or a gentle like wave that like carried me forward?
Yeah, what you were doing in the way we do it, which is different than just listening to something, is typically when we hear a thought, whether it's our own or somebody else's, it fires in the front of our brain. And that's pretty much the completion. If you think about what your favorite food is and you go, oh, it's tacos or pizza or steak or whatever it is for the person, it's just a front brain thought. And it's a great example because typically people will respond, oh yeah, it's X, whatever X is. And I'm like, did you feel that in your body? And they're like, well, no, I just told you from my thought. And what we're doing is not just listening and thinking and hearing the thought. What you do is you hear it, you take that thought and you convert it into an experience. And that's what the full firing in the back brain. And then that fires chemicals that release into the body, and the cellular body starts to create that stored memory, along with your brain starting to create new neural pathways of programming. And so in that food example, it'd be like, okay, what's your favorite food? Tacos. Now think about the best tacos you ever had. Go back to that place, smell them, feel them, taste them, and they start creating that experience. All of a sudden they're in the back brain and they're in this bigger consciousness. It's firing in theta and delta frequencies. They're feeling the whole body react to it. And that is a full thought. A lot of times what we're doing, even in meditation or listening to different things, is we're doing a half thought.
We're not doing a full thought. Yeah. So we're not communicating all the way.
Yeah, correct. Internally, correct. And so But when you can take whatever it is, so now if you skip out of food, pizza or whatever, and you get into like, hey, I truly do see myself. Well, what does that mean? Because it's such a generic phrase, and that's obviously not what we did. I kept it generic, but when we think about, oh, well, what does that mean? Well, who are you seeing? If we can go back and collect 4 or 5 different experiences where you saw someone who did amazing, overcame something really big, came back from a challenge, but someone who created great actions, who stepped up bigger than whatever was in front of them, and you start looking at that person in you, and you start feeling and firing those experiences of happiness or victory or feeling confident or excited, and then you feel that chemical reaction released into the body every day, 4 days a week, 5 minutes a day. You got about 20 times a month. What you're doing is a couple things. One, you're now creating a new neural programming in the brain that is going to be an opportunity for your brain to access in a really powerful way in the back brain, in your subconscious brain. And 2, you're releasing chemicals into the body that create that feeling or that experience of happiness, joy, confidence, belief, trust, knowingness, whatever it is. Actually, it's all those things if you're doing this deliberately. And then all of a sudden your body's feeling it regularly. So now you have positive chemicals coursing through the brain, and you have this beautiful new programming that you're developing. And so then when you're out in the world and you have a chance to either doubt yourself or trust yourself, you now have a new frame of reference in the back brain and in the body to give you a chance to trust yourself, see yourself, know yourself. In the specifics of water or food, it would be like, hey, I want to love myself through water. I want to see how I honor myself. An action of love would be giving myself plenty of water in a day. And that's a programming that we did. And then all of a sudden you're just like, okay, water's now becoming naturally a priority for me. And that's just how it works.
Yeah, things kind of become like second nature, like breathing. And you can't imagine that you ever didn't operate that way. But so that back of the brain then cascade through the body reinforces the front of the brain choice the next time you're faced with it, kind of. So, and then that just compounds. Yep. That's what I experienced.
100%, which is really, really cool. And that's why specifically the work I do that does create this, not only the brain training or the mental workouts at the very end, visualizations, but then how we're firing in the body and the mind, that the combination is really, really key.
The other thing that was really powerful, and we can go back to choices, because it really does start with having that clean clarity space, is going back and looking at places in your life or experiences where you succeeded or had courage or, like you said, honored yourself. But for example, like there would have been something simple that I wasn't in the front of the brain viewing as actually confident. And then once you define what truly honoring yourself means, and you can say, oh, look, in that small interaction and that choice I made to change my order or take a different road that day or whatever it was, something inconsequential, quote unquote, was actually hugely consequential. Building that muscle at the same time as the choices of what you're putting in to nourish your body had a huge impact on being able to make the choices.
Sure.
It's like hand in hand.
Yeah. And part of what we do in the training is active awareness. So we're projecting forward in your day active awareness. So now you're going through your day and you're seeing the different things and you're giving yourself kind of pre-insight to how you're showing up, what you're doing. So programming in active awareness is really huge in this process, which gives you even more of a chance to see things that you're already doing that are great, to see things maybe that don't honor you, to give yourself this chance to overcome the very real and very big human experience that we're all facing.
Yeah, very powerful. And just if anyone's curious listening about mindfulness, if I had to break down like this is what I do every day, because it's become second nature, I was thinking about it. It is getting up and either looking out a window or going outside, looking at the sky, even if it's for 30 seconds. I know the science says longer based on what I listen to in podcasts and stuff, but this is what works for me. Just at least to lay eyes on it in a way and take that deep breath of like, oh, I'm alive today on this earth spinning around in the universe. That vastness, that perspective is very helpful for me, and it takes very little time and is free. And then it's hydrating. And I put salt in my water, and I make sure I drink a full glass of water as the very first thing. Then I have some kind of movement, even whether it's stretching or walking around the block or anything up from there, but it can be as simple as that. And then there's the check-in. So whether I journal, and that can be 5 minutes, less, more, or I just take that moment, and it could be if I walk around the block during the walk, could be layering it, to just be like, okay, how am I today? What do I have in front of me today? How am I approaching this? Where am I taking action? Where am I waiting? Where am I waiting for more information? You know, just kind of like taking stock, if you will. And those 4 or 5 things I just mentioned are what set me up to be able to operate at this point from the space we were talking about, for myself, for my clients, for my family, my husband, my kids, my friends. You know, I'm a human, so of course, like, you get thrown off by things sometimes, and every day is different. But for the most part, it allows me to move in the space we're talking about of honoring myself and others.
Yeah, which is really, really cool. And people ask me as well, so I'm glad you answered it, because they do ask me as well. And it's a really fun thing. When I get up, before I like touch anything, my goal is to stand up first. And then I take a deep breath in, and I typically wake up a little tight, a little stiff, a little like, body's not super dialed in. And so I just breathe, push breath and energy down through to my feet, and I work out any kinks, any stiffness just in breath alone and calling in that breath and energy through my body. And then I'll look over at Nikki and then just take her in this way of gratitude and energy and space there. Then I'll grab my phone, I'll sync my ring to see what my sleep stats are, put my ring down, go in, brush my teeth, and that's another moment where I'll look in my own eyes in the mirror, and I'll take a deep breath in, breathe in, feel gratitude, look at my body, see the light in my eyes. We have this cool window that kind of shines in, that just puts some really cool light in, so do that. Then I'll go stretch and foam roll and just really relax and release the back and the body. Then I'll go out and take my supplements. And sometimes I'm in my head a little bit at this point, but I try to be paying attention to everything I'm taking and why, like to love the body, but also this does this for me. Yeah, this does this for me. Thank you. And I'm not the greatest at that one. And then I make my shake and then go meditate. Then I finally get to have coffee, which is one of my, as you know, one of my favorite things to do and make is coffee.
Sacred act.
Yes, and that consistency sets me up for such a foundation or strength in the day that and this is whether I'm traveling or whatever doing, this is just integrated into my everyday life now. And it's such an important thing because there are so many variables throughout a day. There are so many emotions that can come in without us paying attention. And then, of course, the intensity of life itself, that having these foundational things are so huge to the body and the mind, having this like really good landing pad to be on as we move through the day.
Absolutely. As a former hot mess every day, I can speak to the power of these simple things. Yeah. And you do them one at a time, and you do it with support if you need. And there's plenty of free resources. But I mean, hot mess, anxious, looking over my shoulder, totally front of brain, clouded by what I was putting in my body, not having the best sleep. I mean, all of it like dominoes in the other direction. If you just start picking up one domino at a time, it starts to go in the other direction. And so it is just such a powerful and simple, everyone I think finds like our morning routines are similar yet totally different, specifically what we stated, but so much similarity at the same time. Once you start getting curious about what works for you and trying some stuff out, each person finds their own way to ground and have that perspective and find that peace within. Yeah. Super cool. And the other thing is, because you talked about water and things that come second nature, for me is the moon.
Yeah. Talk about that relationship with the moon and just in general where that fits into everything.
So the moon, rules the tides of the oceans on Earth. That's a scientific fact. And the Earth is made up of about 60 to 75% water. And humans are also made up of a similar percentage of water. So the energies from the moon that are affecting the tides of the oceans are also affecting the tides within us. And before we had technology and all this advancement, way back in the day, humans used the stars and the moon as a guide. It was the GPS. It was when to plant and when to harvest. It was when to move locations, find water, find shelter. And so we don't really need that to interact with the sky that way now, because we have so many technologies and so much information to solve all those things. But I have not found a better replacement for the inner experience. And the moon is the closest thing to Earth, so it's the thing we feel the most. And even if it's as simple as you learn the fact that for 2 weeks, the moon is waxing, which means it's growing in light, going from new to full. And then for the next 2 weeks, it's waning, which is going from full to new, and it's losing light. And on the waxing side, you understand that intentional action is supported. And on the waning side, restful, reflective action is supported. Just that, when I first started working with the moon, was enough to ground me in such a profound way that I wasn't just running all the time. Because it's such a go culture, and real estate is such a go profession. And it can be unpredictable too. It's not like a 9 to 5 where you kind of know what every day is going to be like. So I had to learn how to regulate in an unpredictable daily work environment. And just that kind of knowledge about the moon was enough. I've obviously gone deeper, but I do experience groundedness, peace, and like this partnership, like you were saying, your partner with your supplements. I can look at the moon and instantly feel calmer.
Yeah. There's so many things to that. One, it's the zooming out in the bigger perspective that our eyes, their ocular vision actually takes in. And then when we zoom out, because we're looking at this big vastness of the moon, just like if we were on the beach and seeing the beautiful horizon of the ocean, there's that peace, there's the energy, there's the feeling of something greater. There's so many little things that are happening. And then there is that natural wisdom of letting its energy and its gravitational force work with you. All of that's happening when we look up at the moon, whether we realize it or not, which I do want to talk about a typical misconception, both with energy and the moon. This stuff is not woo-woo. This is just actually things that are working in our life. And when I talk to people, they're like, oh, you work with energy and energy work? I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh, I've never really experienced any of that before. I'm like, have you ever been with somebody and then after you leave them, you feel completely wiped out or drained? They're like, well, yeah, definitely. I'm like, that's energy. Have you ever experienced somebody and felt super uncomfortable with them and you didn't know why? Yes. Well, that's energy. So people are being affected by energy, whether they know about it or not. And it's as scientific as the moon and gravitational force and literally the high tides and the low tides and the magnetic energy, all the things. That is also not woo-woo. It is also science, and we are made up of even more water than Earth is, actually. And so when the moon is pulling one way or the other, if we're not just aware of it, then we cannot be taking advantage of something like that. Just like if we're not aware of energy, we're not taking advantage of it. If we're not aware of how the brain works, we're not taking advantage of it, or the body. So what I'd like to do is normalize, and what I am working with people in as much as I speak and do, normalizing energy, normalizing the moon and connecting to it, normalizing, integrating these things into everyday life. And for me, the choices, whether it's business choices, personal choices, directions to go, things to invest in, whether it's stocks or anything else, I am constantly integrating these things in because they are not designed to be woo-woo. They're designed to be, one, supported by science, which they are, and two, integratable into everyday life to give us an advantage so that we can achieve our greatness.
Amen.
So do you ever feel that awkwardness when you're working with moon energy and stuff like that, and then also being a realtor? Do you ever feel that at all?
What do you mean awkwardness?
Of people going, oh, well, okay, you're a realtor, but you also do moon stuff?
I mean, I really only talk about astrology with people who I sense or have said something to open the door. Because if it's not something that my job as a realtor isn't to educate you on necessarily astrology, but to me, astrology and energy are somewhat interchangeable in that space because they're both unseen forces, well, by humans, unseen forces that affect decision-making and how you feel. And so when I sense someone in a home and their comfort level or this is like, I've walked into a home with clients and been like, we're done. And it might take them 8 more weeks. But it's that house. I already knew. But I can't just say that. They have to get there. But I have a sense of energy that strongly. Or I can walk in and be like, no way. Like we could just go. But I don't. That's up to them if they want to stay or not. Mm-hmm. But so with that sensitivity, what's the other word for it? Like that intuitive ability with energy. I don't have to say that I'm using it. I don't have to necessarily explain it. It's like part of me. It's part of my magic. It's part of what I offer. And if people want to know more about it, great. But if they're not into that and they do think it's woo, which is totally fine, that's cool too. Yeah. It doesn't mean like it's part of who I am, and it effortlessly integrates into how I do my business.
Yeah. Let's talk about a real life example of this alignment, awareness, just feeling this. I know of an experience of yours, one, because we work together, but two, just because anyway, where someone else had the listing and nothing was happening. There was an attempt and misalignment of things, and then you got the listing. Mm-hmm. And before the listing, you had asked them to, based on just feeling the vibe and the flow and knowing what was what, and they made certain commitments to do some things in the home mm-hmm. that would affect the energy, the flow, the vibe of things, of the movement of things. How many days was it listed before you actually got an offer?
The first day, and I had 2 offers.
Day one of the listing,
yes.
And you got 2 offers.
Yes.
Leading up to that, you're doing some of these things, walking through the house, feeling what it feels like, going through the flow. What does it mean to change this? Does that feel, what does it mean to change it? Oh, that's not necessary. That doesn't feel like it's going to move anything, but this does. Hey, listen. And then you told them, hey, I really feel like this is the must, do X, Y, and Z. And then again, day one, 2 offers. And
to their credit, they were open to receiving those messages from me, those ideas, and investing the money to make the changes. Mm-hmm. So that was in partnership with the sellers.
Yeah. And then they still had to execute on a buy yes. in the same market, which tough market for some people, right? And that also flowed yes. very beautifully yes. in the process.
Yes.
And you have to understand where the balances are, talk to then the listing agent on the other side, have the communication, talk about the flow, really get them comfortable with the process too, correct?
The buying process.
Yeah, the listing agent, so that he can then convey it to his client.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's a sense when there's a house for you, when you're ready and you're moving, and when you're committing and you're partnering with me in real estate, or your agent in real estate in a way that honors yourself, like we were talking about. Magic happens. The ability to believe in magic, not as woo, but as real energy, miracles, possibility, better than you can imagine, something you've never seen before, bringing that vibration to real estate allows for it. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of what I do.
Yeah. Really setting them up mentally in a way where they start creating the outcomes that they're looking for.
Yes. If clients are open to it, I will send sometimes daily texts or ideas for, hey, let's take a deep breath together and call this in. Mm-hmm. And, on that same deal, we had a contingency where a buyer had to sell their house before they could buy.
Yeah, there was a three kind of layered thing that needed to happen.
And so when we got down to the deadline of the contingency, meaning my clients were going to have to decide to basically extend it and give that buyer more time to sell their house in order to buy their house, or cancel and go back on the market. And we had, we're going to call it 10 days left. Every day we put our energies together and called in an offer for that person's house. We pictured the address numbers. We did some white light. We pulled in a buyer. We pulled in a buyer that could close. It was very specific, close in a specific way, by a specific date, and we hit all of those.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing to think about the power of the mind and what we open ourselves up to, and how that actually does create our reality. I know people have talked about this kind of almost as a joke before, that we're living in a sim. Mm-hmm. We're living in this this thing.
It's all an illusion.
Right.
Creating, constructing from our mind.
And when we think about, well, what does that even look like? How does that even mean? For me, what I truly believe is that we are here in our own paths, doing our own things, to continue to grow in a way that opens us up to what we're ready for, what we're going to allow into our life. Is that a sim? I don't know. But more importantly, I know that the more I allow in, but to do that, I have to work on my humanness to allow more in, the more comes in. And you can't just, allowing more in doesn't just happen over nothing. It's like growing your muscles. They don't just it doesn't just happen. You got to put the work in. And so all of this work that you did with your clients, all this work that we do to create the experiences, that's the allowing work. And more importantly, there's command, there's energy, there's power, there's a lot that has to go into creating that. So that's really fun.
Can you talk about, you just said to open yourself up more and growth, you have to work on your humanness. Can you expand on what you mean by humanness and maybe an example?
Sure. For all of us, there's two spaces where humanness influences us. Our internal brain, and how we have chosen a program from the time we're born, typically up until about 8 or 10, and we're hardwired. And then after that, it's just we're living our programming and creating our realities from it. There's exceptions to that. Major traumas, major issues, major things can really reshape our brain. But for the most part, that's how it works. There's that internal programming, and it's an interpretation, what this person does as a mom or a dad, if you have a mom or if you don't have a mom or dad, if you're adopted, all the variables of as a child, experiencing other people in your classroom as a little kid, all that, and how you perceive it all creates wiring in the brain. Then the second part of humanness is the collective human construct. This is this over time, this general concept of humanness. That's where the collective human construct is, where 1 + 1 = 2 lives. Yeah. The ABCs, the color red, blue, orange, because it was just this passing down of information over time from one teacher to the next teacher to the next teacher to the next teacher until you received it. But that's not just that. It's all kinds of other rules like speed limits and what's the appropriate way to drive.
Say appropriate.
Yeah, what's the appropriate way to drive? Well, that's now when you're getting into opinions and variables. Also, how should a father be? How should a mother be? Now we're getting into interpretations, and that's just your own interpretation of the world, and then you then anchor your humanness. So we have the collective human consciousness that's on 24/7. We have an internal human consciousness that is on 24/7, and that is the humanness that we're experiencing every single day. And so for me, and what that looks like is different than you. But it's what if we can work on countering that, because we no longer have to live by either the collective story or our own internal story based off our childhood. We can live off of a story of our choosing. And that's what the work that I do with people is training people's brains to live off of a story of their choosing and watching how they change their own lives by doing that. It's pretty amazing.
I mean, when we first started working together, I literally had someone I work with who saw me every day come up and say to me, like, you look completely different than like a month ago. Like, what are you doing? You don't even look the same. My skin tone, the vibrancy of my hair, I think probably my eyes, the light, that like sparkle, what comes through your eyeballs. Might talk about energy. A lot of that was energetic shifts of my being. But she was floored. So you literally look like a different person.
Yeah. It was the same for me as well when I started working on myself. So it's a testament to just doing the work daily. And this isn't a mystery type of thing. There's nothing mystical about it. It's like if you grab a 5-pound dumbbell, 15-pound dumbbell, and you start curling every single day, your muscle's going to grow.
Yes.
There's no magic or mysticism in that. That is just exercise, and you will create a greater strength. Same with the brain. If you exercise the brain, you'll create greater strength. The thing has been in the past that is just this, we got to do a lot of quote unquote healing, and we've got to do a lot of unpacking, and we got to go through a lot of pain and trauma.
Yeah, you don't do that. I haven't experienced that with you. You're sort of like, that is what it is.
Yeah.
How grateful that you experienced it that way. That was something that helped me.
If something is still a pain in you, it's not about healing it. It's about extracting the gift from it. And that's what is a very unique approach, is instead of having to release or heal, because it's programming. It's if it's programming, it's going to stay programming.
It's like a brain operating system that's running. Yeah.
But if it's still painful or still hurts you or you can't get past it, it's truly because you haven't extracted the gift from it yet. And that takes work. And sometimes it could be something pretty traumatic to the person.
I think some things took me years of, and we were meeting monthly. I mean, it wasn't like, it was very consistent. And the layers that the brain, as you're reprogramming, if you will, I think maybe that's part of what the time was. You lift the bigger boulders first, seem to move, and you definitely feel different. But then there's still like the smaller rubble.
The small stuff is the big stuff, really.
So how has your perception of humanness grown over the years?
Well, that's actually been something I've worked on a lot. Really now what I see is like humanness is like a work of art. It's divinely designed by the universe, by God. And sometimes my human wants to judge the humanness, and then it doesn't feel so artsy. Right. It feels like, why did you do that? Get in your lane, whatever else it is. But if we really understand the divine design of humanness, the collectives out there, plus our own internal, if we're really talking about those two things, humanness, the human experience, is a beautiful art because it is perfectly designed to get you to wake up to your greatness. It's designed to be dysfunctional. It's designed to be create resistance and friction. But that friction and resistance isn't so you suffer. It's designed to get you to wake up to a greater experience. And so when I'm continuing to work on this even daily, is looking at, I'm like, oh, what beautiful art that is. You know, the lights, the darks, the highs, the lows, all of that stuff, if you're looking at a painting, is something that you would look at. The speed of the brush stroke, the intensity of it, how much it's layered, what colors they are. That is humanness. And every bit of it is designed to paint a beautiful picture of this magical world. And if we utilize it to wake ourselves up to our greatness, there's nothing better than that. But it takes me continuing to train my brain to look at people, the world, the experience as the magic.
Wow. And so before it was art, before this perception, what was your perception before you got to that perception? Just as a baseline. So like.
No, I get it. It's when I looked at the world, I felt frustration. I felt anger. I felt a lot as a result of chaos, seeing chaos out in the world. And what's really interesting is if you were to sit in front of a bunch of trees and you think, wow, like you look at these trees and it feels good. You hear the wind blowing through the leaves. And if you look up and it's the canopy, and we look at that in that way. But if we're looking at it through the lens of judgment, you're looking up and all these branches are going all different directions. You know, they're not symmetrical. You know, they're not.
Right, the leaves are moving in different ways.
Yeah, there's all of them have knots on them, and some of them are falling, and there's the tree's leaning and it's twisted. So you look at trees, if you looked at it through the same judgment that we look at humanness with, you would look at this and like, look at the chaos of this. Inconsistent, all over the place, twisting, turning, encumbering each other, obnoxious. But we don't, because we see it as this, when we zoom out, we just see it as this beautiful thing. I'm trying to get to a place where everything in humanness I see in that same way, so that yes, there's twists, there's turns. Yes, there's knots. Yes, there's branches going in different directions. Yes, they're encumbering other branches. That's the beauty of the experience. And if we can lean into that, it makes our life so much easier. And then we're not rising and falling with it. And we're just deciding, how do we want to flow in it?
Okay, so let's say I am completely in humanness. I've become overwhelmed with the branches and the leaves. Mm-hmm. What would be something I could do to get to that other perspective? So if I catch first of all, it's obviously the awareness. I've gotten pretty good at, I'm having a human experience right now. I am reacting, usually, in some way with emotions. Okay, if I'm in it and my system is loud, what would be something I could do to see the tree in the beautiful, peaceful way?
I would try to look at some humanness of the past, because if we try to just elevate past it,
it doesn't go away. I've tried.
Yeah, but if you go, wait, let me look at another example in the past where I've been triggered or bothered or frustrated at a human experience that ended up supporting me, that ended up gifting me, that ended up in a really great outcome for me, or it got me stronger in this way or whatever. And when you take your own humanness and you look at past humanness where it has been the opposite of what you're currently triggered in, it's a really great chance to take in, I call it fighting fire with fire, because we're not trying to go up into our greater wisdom. We're not trying to.
It's not possible if you're.
It can be tough. Yeah. Yes.
I'm not going to say not possible. It's challenging.
Very challenging. But let me look at the past. You know, what did I do? What bothered me? What triggered me? It could be a deal falling out last minute. It could be a person that you feel disappointed by that's really triggering you, and you're like, wait a minute. What did I gain from that? What was the benefit there? What did I learn? How did I evolve? And how big is that deal? How big is that really? It was never that big in the first place. Now I can see that as I look back at it a month or 5 years ago, but I couldn't see it at the time. Well, if that's true, then this could also be true. And so now you're like, okay, maybe this isn't as big. And now you're actually using human logic to counter human logic, because it's not logic, but it's humanness of going, this is frustrating, this person this, or this situation that. And we just go, okay, it's okay, you know. And when we really kind of fight that fire with fire, that would be my biggest recommendation.
Okay. That reminds me, you know, in woo and healing space, there's a lot of talk of the inner child. Okay. There's also an inner parent. And that example is sort of like a little bit like, okay, I'm needing help. I can sense that I'm off balance. And then really using logic and rationale to look at other information that proves that everything's okay. Mm-hmm. Kind of what that example was for me. And parenting yourself in a way where you like help to calm and give the information to know that it's all going to be okay, maybe even better. Yeah. You know, so I just love the idea of the inner parent. I've been using that a lot recently. Yeah. Because it felt like the inner child was alone. And that is not the case. We are so capable of self-soothing, self-love, and I think expanding your self-love and your self-compassion is a great practice. For me, it's been a great practice in those moments to then be able to do what you just said.
Yeah, inner parent's a great one if that's a label that resonates. Human coach is another label that we could call that.
I love coaches. Everybody needs a coach.
Yeah, sometimes parent doesn't resonate with certain people,
Yeah, good point.
But sometimes it really lands for somebody who feels like that's a great support.
Just because the child parent is such a like common human relationship that's out there. But
parent triggers defiance in me.
Right. So human and coach. I like that.
Yeah, human logic, you know, activate the human logic in you. Anything you want. For anyone and everyone, it can be different, and you can make up your own. It could be Bob or Harvey. Yeah. You know, let's ask Bob. But what's Bob have to say? I love it when people make up names like that. It's awesome.
Well, and it makes it fun.
Yeah, make it your own for sure. Yeah. What else haven't we covered that you'd like to talk about?
I think one thing I'd love to put out there is that this is a time energetically, astrologically, which is energies, where a lot more of the positive and supportive energies we were talking about today are available. And in a way they haven't been before. Mm-hmm. And so I do think it's helpful to have that information, to know that on a deep level, that every single human has the opportunity and ability to connect in this way. And you don't even necessarily need a coach. There've been a couple nuggets in here you could just start playing with on your own and see where it takes you. Yeah. But knowing that those frequencies are more available, stronger, louder, if you will, brighter, so that if you want to try to move your energy more in alignment with them, it is very possible, and it's a great time of opportunity for people.
And I have free visualizations on my website, alfuentes.com. If you go to free content, and it'll have a lot of, if you want to try there. Do you have free? I do. Yeah, talk about your website and the free stuff you have if people want to dive into that too.
Yes, I have free meditations on mindfulagent.com. And there are some more general ones, but there are also specific ones for buying and selling your house. The kind of realtor I am, what makes me unique in real estate is truly understanding on a deeper level and supporting you in helping find your truth about buying and selling a home. And that leads to greater outcomes. Some people call it magic.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Yeah, so much fun.